Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel. I have a lovely story for you today, and it comes from a bush pilot called Steve from Alaska. So let's get started. He writes, "Dear Sarah, I'm writing to tell you about a Bigfoot encounter that happened to me 10 years ago in the year 2010. I'm a bush pilot from Alaska, and I literally fly over all the remote areas of wilderness where there is no easy access by foot. We have a saying here in Alaska, fly an hour or walk a week, and that's what it's really like. There are two parts of Alaska. One part is the road system, where you can travel by road, but the other part can only be accessed by plane, as there are no roads anywhere in this 30 million acres of vast wilderness. I fly what is known as a Jeep of the Skies. It's called a Super Cub, and these little planes are so brilliant for flying. You literally feel like a bird with strapped-on wings when you fly the Cub. It was actually designed in the 1950s, but they have never been able to make anything better than the Cub. Obviously, there are now some modern modifications to the Super Cub, such as large tires that do make landing much safer. I kid you not when I say it is easier to land on a glacier in one of these planes than it would be a modern-day runway. There are several kinds of bush pilots that fly these planes. You can fly a ski plane on glaciers, or you can fly a floating plane on remote lake, or last but not least, you can fly a bush plane over vast areas of wilderness and land wherever you want. The latter is my mission as a pilot. My job is to assist in emergency situations of any kind, and it was in one of these situations that I had my first Bigfoot encounter, and hopefully my last. On the day in question, I was notified by radio that a couple had both lost their child, and it appeared that she had been kidnapped by a bear. The whole situation sounded extremely odd to me, because bears don't kidnap. They either kill straight away or they ambush you. But I've never heard of a kidnapping bear before. Suddenly my mobile phone started to ring, and I found the mother speaking to me on the other end of the line. "I have to tell you something," she said. "I have to come clean. It was not a bear that took little Millie. It was a strange hairy monster that looked like a huge bipedal ape. You appreciate I could not tell the authorities this, because they might think I'm crazy." "I understand," I said, thinking to myself suddenly that the creature who took her child must have been a Sasquatch. I'd never seen one, of course, but I was open to believing in their existence. Alaska was always full of surprises. Having lived in Alaska for so long, I'd heard all kinds of stories about the so-called hairy man, and there had been many sightings of him. And people in Alaska believed that there were several species of Bigfoot living in the vast untouched wilderness of Alaska, or should I say the great frontier. "Did you see him?" I asked her. "Oh yes," she cried. "He hurled my daughter over his shoulders and ran away. Poor little Millie. She was screaming her lungs out. You do not think he's going to kill her, do you?" "Madam," I said, "I do not want to get your hopes up. The wildlife here in Alaska is brutal. Many people go missing here every year and are never found. Even if this creature does not kill your daughter, you do understand that the elements most certainly will." I could hear the mother sobbing on the other end of the phone, and I tried to reassure her. "While it's light, we still have some hope of finding her," I said. "Do not give up. Have you got the coordinates of your exact location, madam?" She gave me all the details, and I took them down as quickly as I could. "Madam," I asked her again, "did your daughter ever feel that something was stalking her at any stage?" "Oh, yes," said the girl's mother. "She did. You see, she loves to go into the woods very regularly to play on her guitar. She has a beautiful voice, you know, and loves to sing. She did tell me that she was uncomfortable going in the woods lately because she felt she was being watched. I told her it was her imagination. But yesterday when she came home, she was convinced that something was following her. She said she could distinctly hear footsteps coming from behind her." "Look," I need to get moving to find your daughter as soon as possible, I said. Please find her, begged the mother. Please, I beg you. I'll do my best, madam, I replied. I had been on missions like this before, and I knew that things did look exceedingly grim for this poor lady. I had heard stories like this on many occasions, and there was never a good outcome. The best scenario was actually finding a dead body, because more often than not, the person's body was never ever recovered. I loaded my rifle and jumped onto my super cub, and in minutes I was in the sky. I always love the bird's eye view I get of Alaska from the plane. I just find the whole experience so liberating. I have often been told I have the best job in the whole wide world, but now I wasn't so certain. Not if I had to be the bearer of bad tidings to this poor mother. To cut a long story short, I flew over the woods where the little girl went missing, and I noticed that a cluster of trees were swaying. I brought down my plane to 200 feet above the trees, and then closer. I could see these red-haired creatures in the tree tops, and they were very big. But what were they? I did not know. Could they be Sasquatches, I wondered? The great thing about a super cub is you can land anywhere, and I knew these red things in the trees needed investigating, so I decided to land in the closest clearing. As I walked into the woods as quietly as I could, I detected some very large footprints in the mud. They could have only been made by a creature that was over 700 pounds at least. I also noticed so many trees in the woods had been snapped very recently, and there were areas on the trees where the bark had been scraped off. What did it all mean? I didn't know. I then heard the loudest slapping sounds come from every area of the forest. It felt as if these creatures were surrounding me. I was starting to grow very alarmed. I knew I was in serious danger, and so I cocked my rifle and fired a couple of warning shots into the air. Suddenly I heard the loudest scream imaginable, and jumping out of the tree, landing in front of me, was an alpha male red Bigfoot. How on earth was I really looking at this? And how on earth was a tree able to support a weight of such gargantuan form? Even a grizzly bear seemed small by comparison to this gargantuan creature, I thought. As he stood before me, he opened his mouth and let out another monstrous scream that was so loud it made my whole body vibrate. The fear I felt was palpable, and I really thought I was about to die. I knew I did not stand a chance in hell against this monstrous creature. His thin mouth lifted above his teeth, and he snarled at me with a vicious snarl. The expression on his face was so evil, it was like nothing I had ever seen before. Then suddenly I saw a dozen reddish creatures sliding down various tree trunks like firemen on their poles. The agility of these creatures was phenomenal. They were masterful gymnasts and would have been beautiful to watch in safer circumstances. Right now, I knew I was not safe. I was surrounded by over a dozen of these Sasquatches, and I knew it was over for me. What did I have to lose, I thought, firing my rifle directly at the alpha male, aiming my shot at his groin area. My bullet hit him in the balls, and he doubled over in agony, screaming like a baby. Suddenly all the red creatures scattered and raced up various tree trunks. I think seeing their pack leader in a bad way scared them off very fast. I wish I could say that I went looking for the kidnapped girl, but I did not. Anyway, I reconciled myself with the fact that she had to be dead and returned to my plane in haste. I knew there was no time to lose. It was only a matter of time before the alpha male came after me again, and this time I knew I would not be so lucky. Sorry, I'm just getting to the place. As my plane rose up in the air, a creature climbed up into the seat next to mine. "Are we safe now?" she asked. It was the little girl I'd been looking for. Are you Millie? I asked in surprise. How on earth did you get in here? Those creatures took me to the top of the tree, she said. Then when the big ones screamed, they forgot about me and slid down the trunks. And I did too, she said. I've never done anything so athletic in my life, but I was so afraid I had to get out of here. Anyway, I heard your gunshots, so I looked for your plane and got in and waited for you. Clever girl, I said. Did they do anything to you? I asked. No, she said, but I think they were going to give me to the very big one, the one you shot. I'm so glad I got here in time, I said. 2 days passed, and then I received a parcel from Millie's mother. It was a beaver aircraft, and she had a card attached to it which read, "Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for saving my child from those red devils. I will never be able to forget what you did." So that was my Bigfoot encounter. And no, I'm not flying that beaver aeroplane I was given. I gave that plane to my son. You see, nothing in the world beats my super cub flying over the Alaskan wilderness. With best regards to you and your listeners, Steve. Thank you, Steve, so much for a really wonderful story. Until next time, goodbye.